Let me tell you something that happened to me on a cold December morning many years ago that changed everything I thought I knew about prosperity. I was sitting in my study, watching the first snow begin to fall, and I heard a man's voice through my window. He was outside, selling newspapers on the corner, and he was shouting the same phrase over and over, "Read all about it. Everything you need to know." And in that moment, something struck me like lightning. This man understood something profound, something most people miss their entire lives. He wasn't just selling papers. He was speaking his prosperity into existence. Every word he shouted was a declaration, an announcement to the universe of what he expected to receive. You see, I realized right then that December isn't just another month on the calendar. December is the universe's final exam. It's the month when everything you've been thinking, feeling, and believing all year long comes rushing toward you like a river reaching the ocean. And here's what most people don't understand. You're not just waiting for December to happen to you. You're not a victim of circumstances or a leaf blown by winter winds. You are the creator, the architect, the very voice that speaks your December into being. Right now, as you're listening to these words, something inside you already knows this is true. You can feel it, can't you? That subtle stirring in your chest, that quiet whisper that says there's something more available to you this month than you've been allowing yourself to receive. I'm here to tell you that whisper is correct. That feeling is your subconscious mind recognizing truth when it hears it. But here's where most people stumble. They think prosperity is something that happens by chance, by luck, by being in the right place at the right time. They look at their bank account on December 1st and they think that number determines what kind of month they'll have. They look at last year's December and they assume this year will be the same. They hear the word prosperity and they think it's only about money, only about things, only about external circumstances. This is the great misunderstanding, and it's costing people everything. Prosperity isn't a thing that comes to you. Prosperity is a state of consciousness that you embody. It's a frequency you tune into, like adjusting a radio dial until the static clears and you hear the music that was playing all along. And the tuning mechanism, the dial you turn, is your own voice speaking words of truth into your experience. I want you to understand something crucial right now. Something that will make the difference between a December of struggle and a December of divine increase. The words you speak, especially in this powerful month, are not just sounds that disappear into the air. They are creative forces. They are seeds planted in the fertile soil of your subconscious mind. They are commands given to the infinite intelligence that governs all things. When you say, "I can't afford this," you're not describing reality. You're creating it. When you say, "Nothing ever works out for me in December," you're issuing instructions to your subconscious mind, which always, always, always says yes to whatever you tell it. Your subconscious doesn't argue. It doesn't judge. It doesn't say, "Are you sure about that?" It simply accepts your words as truth and goes to work making them manifest in your experience. Think about what you've been saying lately. Really think about it. What words have been coming out of your mouth when you talk about money, about this month, about your future? Have you been speaking prosperity, or have you been speaking poverty? Have you been declaring abundance, or have you been affirming lack? Because I promise you this, with absolute certainty, your December is listening to every single word. Your words are not just sounds that disappear into the air. They are creative forces. They are decrees that your subconscious mind accepts as instructions. When you say, "I can't afford this," your subconscious doesn't argue. It simply says, "Your wish is my command," and begins to arrange circumstances that validate your declaration of poverty. But when you say, "Money flows to me easily and naturally," your subconscious accepts that too. It begins to orchestrate events, attract opportunities, and guide you toward the manifestation of that statement. This is not positive thinking for the sake of feeling good. This is scientific prayer. This is working with the law that governs your entire existence. I want you to become ruthlessly aware of the words you use when you speak about money. Listen to yourself as if you were listening to a stranger. Would you hire that person? Would you trust them with your financial future? If someone spoke about money the way you do, would you believe they were destined for wealth? Most people wouldn't, because most people speak poverty even when they desire wealth. They say things like, "I'm broke, I'm drowning in debt, money is so hard to come by, I'll never get ahead," and then they wonder why their financial situation never changes. They are literally praying for poverty and expecting to receive abundance. Your subconscious mind is listening to every single declaration you make. It is recording every statement as a command. And here's what most people don't understand. Your subconscious cannot tell the difference between a joke and a serious statement. When you laugh and say, "I'm so broke I can't even pay attention," your subconscious doesn't hear the humor. It hears the decree, "I am broke," and it responds accordingly. This December, I want you to speak only words of prosperity. I want you to affirm abundance in every conversation. When someone asks how you're doing financially, don't complain, don't commiserate. Say, "I am richly blessed. Money comes to me in expected and unexpected ways." Your words are creative power. They set the law in motion. When you say, "I can't afford this," you're instructing your subconscious mind to arrange conditions that make it true. But when you declare, "Abundance flows to me naturally," you're issuing a different command entirely, one that opens channels of prosperity. I knew a businessman who repeated constantly, "I'll never get ahead. I'm always broke." And his life reflected this precisely. His circumstances mirrored his declarations. Then one day he understood this principle. He began saying instead, "I am a magnet for prosperity. Wealth seeks me out." Within 6 months, his entire financial situation transformed. New opportunities appeared. Clients found him. Money arrived from forgotten sources. This isn't magic, it's law. The law of mind. What you impress upon your subconscious must express in your experience. Now, here's something vital. Never criticize others for their wealth. Never harbor resentment toward those who have prospered. This is spiritual poison. When you look at someone else's success with bitterness or jealousy, you're actually pushing wealth away from yourself. You're telling your subconscious, wealth is bad, prosperity is wrong, and your subconscious, ever obedient, responds by keeping you from it. Instead, bless others in their abundance. When you see someone driving an expensive car, silently say, "I bless your prosperity, and I claim mine." When you hear of someone's financial success, rejoice. Say, "That's wonderful, and it shows me what's possible." Because what you bless in others, you attract to yourself. What you condemn in others, you repel from your life. I've watched people sabotage their own prosperity through criticism and judgment. They see wealth and immediately think, exploitation, greed, corruption. They've associated money with evil. And so money cannot come to them not because money is avoiding them, but because they're avoiding money. Reverse this pattern immediately. Recognize that money is spiritual. It's energy. It's a symbol of exchange, of value given and received. There's nothing inherently good or evil about it. It simply amplifies what you already are. In the hands of a generous person, money does tremendous good. In the hands of a selfish person, it reflects that selfishness. But don't let others' misuse of wealth deter you from claiming yours. Your attitude toward money determines whether it flows toward you or away from you. I've seen this principle play out countless times. A woman once told me she felt guilty every time she received a paycheck. Her childhood programming convinced her that having money made her less spiritual, less pure. And so she sabotaged herself repeatedly, overspending on things she didn't need, giving money away indiscriminately without wisdom, creating emergencies that drained her accounts. When she shifted her consciousness and began to see money as a spiritual tool, everything changed. She started affirming, "Money flows to me freely and I use it wisely for good." Within months, her income doubled. But more importantly, her relationship with abundance transformed. She no longer felt that terrible conflict between her spiritual aspirations and her material needs. You must make peace with prosperity. You cannot prosper while condemning prosperity. You cannot attract what you secretly resent. Search your heart honestly. Do you harbor hidden judgments about wealthy people? Do you secretly believe that financial struggle makes you more noble? These unconscious beliefs are barriers between you and your good. Let me tell you something vital. Poverty is not a virtue. It never was. Poverty is a disease of the mind that manifests in your bank account. The saints and mystics who lived in voluntary simplicity did so from a position of inner abundance, not lack. They had transcended attachment, but they didn't condemn wealth itself. There's a profound difference between non-attachment and poverty consciousness. Your subconscious mind is listening to every thought you think about money. When you say, "I can't afford that," your subconscious accepts it as a command. When you say money is hard to come by, you're instructing your deeper mind to make money difficult to attract. Your words are not idle, they are creative forces that shape your experience. Begin to speak a new language about abundance. Say, money comes to me easily and naturally. Say, I am a channel for prosperity. Say, the universe is lavish and abundant, and I am part of that abundance. At first, these statements may feel hollow or false. Your rational mind will protest. But persist. You're reconditioning decades of wrong thinking. I remember a businessman who repeated the affirmation, "Wealth flows to me from expected and unexpected sources every morning and evening for 90 days. He told me that around day 30, something shifted. Opportunities began presenting themselves. A client he'd written off years ago called with a major contract. An investment he'd forgotten about matured with significant returns. Within 6 months, Richard had not only recovered financially, but he'd exceeded his previous success. But more importantly, the anxiety was gone. The desperation had vanished. He told me that what changed wasn't his circumstances first, it was his inner conviction. And when that changed, everything else followed. This is what I want you to understand. Your subconscious mind doesn't distinguish between a real experience and one vividly imagined. When you repeatedly impress upon it the feeling of your wish fulfilled, it accepts this as fact. It then works tirelessly, through ways you cannot consciously orchestrate, to make your outer world conform to this inner blueprint. Think of a time when you worried intensely about something. Perhaps you feared a difficult conversation, an important meeting, or a potential loss. Did you notice how your mind kept returning to that fear? How you rehearsed worst-case scenarios over and over? That's you using this same principle, but in reverse. You were impressing fear upon your subconscious, and it dutifully brought you experiences that matched that vibration. You attracted exactly what you focused upon. The principle is neutral. It works whether you're conscious of it or not. It responds to belief, to feeling, to the habitual patterns of your thought. You can use it deliberately to create what you desire, or you can use it unconsciously to perpetuate what you fear. The choice is always yours. Now, let me address a question that often arises. How long does this take? When will I see results? This is where many people stumble. They approach the subconscious mind with the impatience of someone ordering fast food. They want instant gratification, immediate proof. But remember, you're working with a law as precise as gravity. You wouldn't plant a seed and dig it up the next day to check if it's growing. You trust the process. You water it, you provide sunlight, and you allow nature to work. The same patience and faith are required here. Some manifestations happen quickly, others take time. The timeline isn't what matters. What matters is your persistence in maintaining the feeling of the wish fulfilled, regardless of current circumstances. Your subconscious mind doesn't wear a watch. It doesn't consult a calendar. It operates in a dimension where time as you understand it simply doesn't exist. This is why you must never set arbitrary deadlines that create anxiety or desperation. I've seen people sabotage their own manifestations by becoming frantic when results didn't appear according to their timetable. They declared, "I give it 2 weeks, and if nothing happens, this doesn't work." That declaration itself is an impression upon the subconscious, an impression of doubt, of disbelief, of the wish unfulfilled. Instead, adopt the attitude of the gardener who plants a seed. Does the gardener dig up the seed every morning to check if it's growing? Does she stand over the soil, tapping her foot impatiently, demanding that the sprout appear on her schedule? Of course not. She waters it. She provides the right conditions, and she trusts the invisible process happening beneath the surface. You must do the same with your desires. Plant the seed through your feeling of the wish fulfilled. Water it daily with your mental imagery and emotional conviction. Then trust the creative process of your deeper mind to bring it forth in its own perfect timing. Remember this fundamental truth. Your subconscious mind is always working, always creating, always responding to the dominant impressions you give it. There is never a moment when it is idle. Even as you sleep, it continues its creative work, orchestrating circumstances, arranging events, attracting people and opportunities that correspond to your habitual thinking. This is why consistency matters far more than intensity. A gentle, persistent assumption held faithfully will outperform a desperate, forced effort every time. The person who quietly maintains the feeling of their wish fulfilled for 30 days will see results that elude the person who tries frantically for 3 days, then gives up in discouragement. Your only task is to remain faithful to your vision. Not blind faith in some external force, but intelligent faith in the creative law of your own consciousness. You are not begging an outside power. You are activating a principle that operates with the same reliability as the law of gravity. When doubt whispers, "It's taking too long," remind yourself that you are dealing with infinite intelligence, not limited human reasoning. Your subconscious knows pathways you cannot see. It can arrange circumstances that your conscious mind never imagined. Your job is not to figure out the how. Your job is to claim the end result with absolute conviction, and let the infinite intelligence within you orchestrate the means. This is where most people stumble. They try to control the process. They worry about logistics, timing, connections, resources. But the moment you release your grip on the how, you open yourself to solutions far greater than your conscious mind could construct. I have witnessed this principle work in the most remarkable ways. A woman once came to me desperate for employment. She had applied to dozens of positions with no success. I asked her to stop focusing on applications and instead spend 10 minutes each night feeling the satisfaction of purposeful work, seeing herself valued and financially secure. Within 2 weeks, she ran into a former colleague at a grocery store, someone she hadn't seen in 5 years. That casual conversation led to an introduction, which led to a position that paid more than anything she had applied for. Her subconscious arranged that chance meeting. There are no accidents in a universe governed by mental law. This is the invisible architecture of your reality. Your subconscious is always working, always creating, always responding to the dominant patterns you feed it. When you worry, it creates circumstances that validate your worry. When you doubt, it finds evidence for your doubt. But when you persistently impress it with your desired end, it moves heaven and earth to bring it to pass. So I ask you to examine your habitual thinking. What story are you telling yourself throughout the day? Are you rehearsing limitations or possibilities? Are you reacting to current circumstances as if they are permanent? Or are you inwardly dwelling in the reality you wish to experience? The present moment is your point of power. Right now, in this very instant, you can choose a new assumption. You can decide that from this moment forward, you will no longer accept the verdict of external conditions as final. You will plant a new seed in consciousness and tend it with feeling until it blossoms in your world. This is not about positive thinking in the superficial sense. This is not about repeating empty affirmations while your heart remains unconvinced. This is about a fundamental shift in your inner conviction. When you truly assume something to be true, when you occupy that state completely, your entire nervous system reorganizes itself. Your perception changes, the opportunities you notice change, the actions you feel inspired to take change. I've watched people transform their health by assuming they are whole and well, not by denying symptoms, but by refusing to give those symptoms the final word. They ceased identifying with disease and began identifying with vitality. And gradually, persistently, their outer conditions began to reflect this inner shift. I've seen individuals revolutionize their financial circumstances by assuming abundance rather than lack. They stopped rehearsing poverty in their imagination. They stopped telling the old story of limitation. Instead, they dared to feel wealthy in consciousness before a single dollar appeared. And as they persisted in this assumption, new channels opened. New ideas came. New connections formed. You see, your imagination is not some frivolous daydreaming faculty. It is the creative workshop where your future is being forged right now. What you are imagining, what you are assuming to be true about yourself and your life, is the pattern being impressed upon the universal subconscious. And that universal subconscious has no choice but to honor the pattern you give it. This is why I urge you to become intensely aware of your inner conversations. Listen to the dialogue running through your mind throughout the day. Are you speaking to yourself as someone who is defeated or victorious, lacking or fulfilled, rejected or accepted? These inner conversations are not idle chatter. They are creative decrees going forth into the medium of pure possibility. When you catch yourself affirming limitation, stop immediately. Do not condemn yourself, but gently redirect your attention. Begin to speak to yourself as you would if your desire were already accomplished. This is not lying to yourself. This is recognizing a higher truth that exists in potential, waiting for your recognition to bring it into manifestation. When I first began teaching these principles, a young man came to me in despair. He had been unemployed for months, and every interview ended in rejection. His language revealed everything. I can't find work. Nobody wants to hire me. The economy is against me. I asked him to do something that seemed absurd to him at the time, to spend 15 minutes each morning and evening saying, I am happily employed in my perfect position. I am valued and well compensated. My talents are recognized and appreciated. He protested, of course. But that's not true, he insisted. And I explained what I'm explaining to you now. You are not affirming what is currently visible in your outer world. You are impressing upon your subconscious mind the pattern you wish to experience. You are speaking to that infinite intelligence within you that knows no limitation. Within 3 weeks, this young man received an unexpected phone call from a former colleague. Within a month, he was employed in a position that exceeded his previous salary and matched his skills perfectly. What changed? Not the economy, not the job market. His inner conversation changed, and the outer world rearranged itself to match. This is the mechanics of creation operating through you. Your subconscious mind cannot argue with you. It cannot say, no, I refuse to accept that. It accepts whatever you impress upon it with feeling and conviction. When you persistently claim something as true in your inner world, your subconscious begins to orchestrate circumstances, ideas, and opportunities to make it true in your outer world. But here is where most people falter. They affirm once or twice, see no immediate change, and return to their habitual negative patterns. They say, I tried that positive thinking stuff, and it doesn't work. What they really mean is, I didn't persist long enough to impress my subconscious mind and overcome years of negative conditioning. Think of it this way. If you planted a seed in your garden and dug it up every day to see if it was growing, would you expect a harvest? Of course not. Yet this is precisely what people do with their mental seeds. They plant an affirmation, then immediately dig it up with doubt, fear, and contrary thinking. Your subconscious doesn't argue. It doesn't debate the validity of what you're planting. It simply accepts the dominant impression you give it and sets to work making it real. This is why affirmations must be accompanied by feeling. A statement repeated mechanically, without emotion, without the feeling of its reality, is like a seed tossed on concrete. Nothing penetrates. Nothing takes root. But when you affirm something with feeling, when you can sense it, taste it, feel the emotion of already having it, you're giving water and sunlight to that seed. You're creating the conditions for growth. Let me share something I've witnessed countless times. A man comes to me and says, Dr. Murphy, I've been affirming prosperity for months. Nothing's changed. This doesn't work. I ask him, when you affirm prosperity, what do you feel? He pauses. Well, honestly, I feel like I'm lying to myself. I look at my bank account, and it contradicts everything I'm saying. There's the problem right there. He's not really affirming prosperity. He's affirming lack while occasionally interrupting himself with hopeful words. The subconscious responds to the emotional charge behind your thoughts, not just the words themselves. If your words say abundance but your feelings scream scarcity, guess which message wins? This is why I always emphasize the importance of entering a relaxed, receptive state before doing your mental work. When you're anxious, tense, or fearful, you're in the worst possible condition to impress your subconscious mind positively. Think of it this way. Your conscious mind is the gardener, but your subconscious is the garden itself. A gardener who constantly tramples through the garden, uprooting plants to check if they're growing, who floods the soil one day and starves it the next, who second guesses every planting decision, that gardener will have a barren, chaotic plot. But the patient gardener, who plants with care, who trusts the natural process, who provides consistent conditions and then allows growth to unfold, that gardener will harvest abundantly. The same principle applies to your mind. Plant your desire clearly, feel it as real, then release it to the deeper intelligence that knows exactly how to bring it forth. This doesn't mean you become passive. It means you become purposeful rather than anxious. When you plant a seed in the ground, you don't dig it up every few hours to check if it's growing. You don't stand over it with worry, demanding it sprout immediately. You water it, ensure it has sunlight, and trust the process. Your subconscious mind works in exactly the same way. Many people sabotage their own prayers and affirmations through constant checking. They affirm abundance in the morning, then spend the afternoon anxiously looking at their bank account, feeling the lack. They visualize perfect health at night, then wake up prodding their body, searching for symptoms, reinforcing the very condition they wish to change. This is what I call spiritual schizophrenia, trying to move in two directions simultaneously. You cannot affirm and deny in the same breath. You cannot plant and uproot at the same time. The subconscious mind accepts the dominant impression, and if your dominant state is one of anxious checking rather than confident expectation, you're impressing lack, not abundance. I've counseled countless individuals who wondered why their techniques weren't working. In almost every case, they were working their techniques, but they were also working against them. They would spend 10 minutes affirming prosperity, then spend 16 hours dwelling on bills, shortage, and fear. The mathematics here is simple. The longer, more emotionally charged impression wins. True faith is not blind belief. It's the psychological equivalent of planting that seed and walking away with calm assurance. It's knowing that the laws of mind are as reliable as the laws of nature. When you drop an object, you don't anxiously wonder if gravity will work. You know it will. When you plant a seed in fertile soil, you don't doubt the principle of growth. You trust it. Your mental and emotional life must reflect this same trust. After you've impressed your subconscious with your desire, after you've felt the reality of your wish fulfilled, you must let it go into the creative medium of your deeper mind. This doesn't mean forgetting about it entirely. It means you stop forcing, stop anxiously manipulating, stop trying to figure out every step of the journey. Instead, you remain open and alert to guidance. You follow hunches, inspirations, and intuitive promptings. You take the steps that feel right, that align with your vision. But you do so from a state of inner peace, not desperate urgency. This is the paradox that so many people stumble over. They think that if they're not straining, not pushing, not forcing, then nothing will happen. But the truth is precisely the opposite. When you release the strain, when you stop trying to make things happen through sheer willpower alone, you actually open the channel through which your good can flow to you. Think of it this way. Imagine you're trying to receive a radio signal. If you're constantly fiddling with the dial, adjusting and readjusting in a panic, you'll never lock onto the station clearly. But when you tune to the right frequency and then leave it alone, trusting the signal to come through, you receive it perfectly. Your subconscious mind works the same way. You impress it with your desire, you feel the reality of it, and then you trust it to work on your behalf. I've seen people destroy their own demonstrations through anxiety. They plant the seed, and then they dig it up every day to see if it's growing. They affirm abundance in the morning, and by afternoon they're worrying about bills. They visualize their perfect relationship, and then spend their evenings obsessing over why it hasn't appeared yet. This is not trust. This is not faith. This is mental self-sabotage. When you truly trust your subconscious mind, you relax into the process. You understand that there's a time lag between cause and effect, between the mental seed and the physical harvest. You don't plant a tomato seed and expect a full-grown plant the next morning. You water it, you give it sunlight, and you trust the natural process of growth. Your desires work the same way. Now, does this mean you become passive? Does this mean you sit on your couch and wait for a check to fall from the sky? Of course not. Here's what actually happens. As you maintain your mental state of having received, as you live in the feeling of your wish fulfilled, your subconscious mind begins to guide you. You'll have ideas, you'll feel prompted to make certain calls, to reach out to certain people, to explore certain opportunities. These aren't random. These are your subconscious mind orchestrating circumstances and events in your favor. Your intuition becomes sharper. You'll know which direction to take before logic can explain why. This is the wisdom of your subconscious breaking through the noise of conscious overthinking. I remember a woman who came to one of my lectures years ago. She told me she'd been trying to sell her home for months with no success. She kept dropping the price, growing more desperate. I explained to her what I'm explaining to you now. Before sleep each night, she began to visualize her home sold, to feel the relief and joy of the transaction completed perfectly. She imagined signing the papers, shaking hands with the new owners, feeling grateful for the fair price she received. Within 2 weeks, she felt a strong urge, completely illogical, to stop by her local coffee shop at an unusual time. She wasn't even particularly thirsty. But she went. There, She struck up a conversation with a couple who had just relocated to the area. They were searching for exactly the kind of home she was selling. The sale went through smoothly at a price that satisfied everyone. Coincidence? I don't believe in coincidences when the subconscious mind is engaged. I believe in orchestrated events that appear random only to those who don't understand the law. Your subconscious doesn't just work on your mind, it works through your environment. It influences the people you encounter, the timing of events, the opportunities that cross your path. When you're aligned with your desire at the deepest level, the entire universe seems to conspire in your favor. This is why I tell people, stop forcing, stop struggling, stop trying to manipulate every detail of how your good will come to you. Your conscious mind cannot possibly see all the pathways available. It's too limited, too narrow in its focus. Your subconscious mind, connected as it is to infinite intelligence, can see every possible route. It knows the shortest path, the easiest way, the perfect timing. Your job is to impress it with the end result, and then remain open to guidance. When you try to control exactly how something must happen, you block countless other possibilities. You limit the infinite to your finite understanding. This is why so many people fail. They say, I want this, but it must come through that specific person, in that specific way, by that specific date. They've tied the hands of the universe, release the how, claim the what, feel the reality of the wish fulfilled, and trust the process completely. Your subconscious doesn't care about the mechanics. It doesn't need to know the route, the connections, or the method of delivery. That's not its job. Its job is to express what you've impressed upon it. Your job is to impress it with the feeling of the wish fulfilled. I want you to understand something profound here. The moment you start worrying about how something will come to pass, you've stepped out of the state of the wish fulfilled. You've moved from faith into doubt. You've shifted from acceptance into resistance. When you were a child and you imagined yourself as an astronaut or a doctor or an artist, you didn't sit there mapping out every credential you'd need, every connection you'd have to make, every obstacle you'd face. You simply times yourself being that person. You inhabited that reality completely. And in that moment of pure imagination, you were closer to the creative power of your subconscious than most adults ever get. We complicate things as we grow older. We let the rational mind dominate. We let past failures convince us that we need to control every variable. But the subconscious doesn't operate on the level of variables and contingencies. It operates on the level of conviction and feeling. Here's what I mean practically. Suppose you're imagining financial abundance. Don't waste your mental energy wondering if it'll come through a promotion, an inheritance, a lottery win, or a business opportunity. Those are all means, and there are infinite means available to infinite intelligence. Your concern is with the end. Feel yourself living with financial freedom. Feel the relief, the security, the joy of it. That's the impression. That's the seed you plant. The subconscious will then orchestrate circumstances, ideas, and encounters to bring that feeling into your physical reality. And I promise you, the way it unfolds will often surprise you. It will rarely match your limited human predictions. It will be better, more elegant, more perfect than anything you could have consciously planned. This is why control is the enemy of manifestation. When you insist on controlling the how, you're essentially telling your subconscious, I don't trust you, I'll take it from here. And the moment you do that, you cut yourself off from the infinite intelligence that was working on your behalf. Trust is not passive. It's the most active state there is. It's a daily choice to return to the feeling of the wish fulfilled whenever doubt creeps in. It's a decision to reject appearances that contradict your assumption and to persist in your inner conviction regardless of what your physical senses report. This persistence isn't about stubbornness or forcing anything. It's about loyalty to your vision. When someone you love is criticized unfairly, you don't immediately abandon them. You remain loyal to what you know to be true about them. The same principle applies to your desire. When circumstances seem to contradict your assumption, you don't betray your inner vision. You remain faithful to it. I've watched people give up their assumptions at the first sign of contradiction. They assume wealth, then a bill arrives unexpectedly, and they immediately drop the feeling of affluence and return to worry. They assume health, then feel a minor ache, and instantly resurrect the old assumption of illness. This wavering is what prevents manifestation. The seed of your desire needs consistent conditions to germinate. You can't plant it in faith one day and dig it up in doubt the next, then wonder why nothing grows. The outer world is always showing you the result of your past assumptions. What you see today is the harvest of seeds you planted weeks or months ago through your habitual inner conversations and emotional states. When you change your assumption now, you're planting new seeds, but you must give them time to grow beneath the surface before they break through into visibility. Think of it like turning a ship. When a massive ocean liner decides to change course, the captain turns the wheel, but the ship doesn't pivot instantly. It continues in its old direction for a while, gradually curving toward the new heading. The physical world operates the same way. Your new assumption is the turn of the wheel, but momentum carries the old direction forward temporarily. Impatient passengers might look at the wake behind the ship and say, "See, we're still going the wrong way." But the captain knows better. He holds the wheel steady and trusts the physics of the turn. This is why I emphasize the feeling of naturalness so strongly. When your assumption feels natural, persistence becomes effortless. You don't have to force yourself to remember it constantly because it's become your psychological home base. You automatically return to it the way your tongue returns to a sore tooth, except this is pleasant, not painful. How do you make an assumption feel natural? Through repetition and mental rehearsal. Athletes don't just practice their sport once and expect mastery. They repeat the same movements thousands of times until they become automatic, until the body executes them without conscious thought. Your imagination works the same way. When Muhammad Ali trained for his greatest fights, he didn't just hit the bag and run miles. He spent hours visualizing the fight. He saw himself dancing around his opponent. He felt the impact of his punches landing. He experienced the moment of victory so completely that when fight night arrived, his body already knew what to do. It wasn't hope. It wasn't positive thinking. It was mental rehearsal that programmed his nervous system for success. The subconscious mind cannot distinguish between a real experience and one vividly imagined. Brain scans prove this. When you imagine biting into a lemon, the same neural pathways fire as when you actually bite into one. Your mouth waters. Your face contorts. The experience is neurologically identical. This is why Olympic athletes who combine physical practice with visualization improve faster than those who only practice physically. Think about that. The active imagination creates the same neural patterns as actual experience. You are literally rewiring your brain every time you engage in focused, repeated visualization. You're creating new neural highways that lead directly to your desired outcome. But here's where most people go wrong. They visualize once, maybe twice, then wonder why nothing changes. That's like going to the gym one time and expecting muscles to appear. The power comes through repetition, through persistence, through making your mental rehearsal as regular and non-negotiable as breathing. Every night before sleep, your subconscious is particularly receptive. This is your golden window. As your conscious mind begins to fade, as your critical faculties relax their grip, your subconscious stands ready to accept whatever you feed it. This is when you should be most deliberate, most focused, most committed to your mental imagery. Don't just think about what you want, experience it with every sense available to you. If you're imagining financial abundance, feel the weight of prosperity in your chest. See the numbers in your bank account. Hear yourself speaking with the confidence of someone who never worries about money. Smell the leather interior of that car you've wanted. Taste the celebration dinner. The more dimensions you add to your mental experience, the more real it becomes to your subconscious. And remember, your subconscious mind accepts what you repeatedly impress upon it as true. It doesn't argue. It doesn't question. It simply accepts and then works tirelessly to manifest that internal reality in your external world. This is why your persistent thoughts, the ones you return to again and again, eventually become your lived experience. Not because the universe is mystical or magical, but because your subconscious mind is methodical. It's a faithful servant that never sleeps, never doubts, never takes a day off. Think about worry for a moment. When you worry, what are you really doing? You're vividly imagining an unwanted outcome. You're feeding your subconscious mind detailed pictures of failure, loss, or disaster. And your subconscious, being impersonal, accepts these images just as readily as it would accept images of success and abundance. It begins to work toward manifesting that worry into reality. I've counseled countless people who became masters at manifesting their fears. They didn't want poverty, but they thought about it constantly. They didn't want illness, but they rehearsed symptoms in their mind day after day. They didn't want relationship failure, but they replayed every possible scenario of betrayal and abandonment. And then they wondered why these very things appeared in their lives. The subconscious doesn't understand that you're worrying times about times, something rather than times, desiring times it. It only registers the emotional intensity and the clarity of the mental picture. A fear held with conviction is a prayer for disaster. But here's the liberating truth. This same mechanism works equally well in your favor. When you consciously direct your thoughts toward what you desire, when you feel the reality of your wish fulfilled, when you persist in that assumption despite contradictory appearances, your subconscious accepts this direction and begins to orchestrate circumstances, attract opportunities, and guide your actions toward that end. You don't need to know how times it will happen. That's not your job. Your job is simply to define the end result and feel its reality. The subconscious mind has access to infinite intelligence, to solutions and pathways that your conscious mind could never conceive. It will find the way if you give it the proper direction. I knew a woman who wanted to move into a better home but saw no possible way to afford it. Every time she thought about it, her conscious mind presented obstacle after obstacle. Insufficient income, poor credit, no savings. But she decided to impress her subconscious differently. Every night before sleep, she would imagine herself walking through her ideal home, feeling the textures, seeing the rooms, experiencing the satisfaction of living there. She didn't visualize how times she would get it, just the end result of having it. Within 3 months, a series of unexpected events unfolded. A distant relative passed away, leaving her a modest inheritance. Her landlord offered her a favorable reference, and a unique financing opportunity appeared that perfectly suited her situation. To the outside observer, it seemed like lucky coincidence. But it wasn't luck, it was law. She didn't force it, she didn't chase it. She simply impressed upon her subconscious mind the reality of her desire, and then went about her life with quiet confidence. That's the secret most people miss. They plant the seed and then dig it up every day to see if it's growing. They worry, they doubt, they second guess, and in doing so, they uproot the very thing they're trying to cultivate. Your subconscious mind is like a faithful servant. It doesn't argue, it doesn't question, it simply accepts what you give it and sets to work making it real. But you must give it clear instructions, you must give it feeling, you must give it conviction. I've watched people transform their entire lives by changing nothing but their inner dialogue. A man comes to me, broke and desperate. He's been applying for jobs, networking, doing all the external things. Nothing works. I tell him, stop fighting. Stop trying to manipulate the outer world. Go within. Impress upon your subconscious the feeling of financial security. Feel it as if it's already done. He protests, of course. But I need to take action, he says. And I respond, you will take action. But let it be inspired action, not desperate action. Let it flow from a consciousness of abundance, not from fear of lack. Within weeks, something shifts. An old colleague calls. An unexpected opportunity emerges. Money comes from a direction he never anticipated. He thinks it's magic. I tell him it's mechanics. The mechanics of mind. You see, your subconscious mind is connected to infinite intelligence. It has access to resources, ideas, and pathways that your conscious mind cannot perceive. When you impress it with your desire, it begins orchestrating circumstances, guiding you toward people and opportunities, drawing into your experience exactly what you need. This isn't blind faith. This is scientific prayer. This is the practical application of mental and spiritual law, and it works with mathematical precision when you understand the principles. But here's what you must grasp. You cannot serve two masters. You cannot hold the vision of success while simultaneously entertaining thoughts of failure. You cannot affirm abundance while believing in limitation. Your subconscious mind accepts the dominant impression. Whichever thought pattern you feed most consistently becomes your reality. This is why you must become vigilant about the nature of your inner dialogue. What are you saying to yourself when no one is listening? What words do you repeat in the silence of your own mind? These are not idle thoughts. These are the commands you issue to the subconscious, and it obeys without question. If you constantly say, I can't afford this, your subconscious hears only the affirmation of lack. It goes to work to prove you right. It will find evidence everywhere that money is scarce, that opportunities are limited, that abundance belongs to someone else. But if you say instead, money flows to me easily and naturally, you plant a different seed. You establish a different vibration. Your subconscious begins to search for pathways toward wealth, not away from it. This is not mere positive thinking. This is the science of mental causation. Your words shape your beliefs. Your beliefs shape your emotions. Your emotions shape your actions. And your actions create your circumstances. The chain begins in your mind, with the words you speak to yourself. Now, let me be clear about something that causes much confusion. Affirmation without conviction is empty repetition. It is like planting seeds on concrete and expecting a harvest. If you affirm wealth while your entire being rejects the idea, you create inner conflict. Your words say one thing, but your heart believes another. The subconscious responds to feeling, not mere words. It responds to the conviction behind the statement. This is why you must steep your affirmations in emotion. You must feel the truth of what you are declaring. When you say, "I am prosperous," you must imagine the feeling of prosperity. You must see yourself living in abundance. You must hear the sounds of success around you. You must touch the reality of your fulfilled desire in your imagination. This emotionalized thinking impresses the subconscious deeply. Think of it this way. Your subconscious is like a faithful servant who takes orders only from your feelings. If you say the words but feel the opposite, the servant follows the feeling, not the words. But when your words and feelings align, when your declaration carries the weight of conviction, the subconscious mobilizes all its power to manifest that reality. This is why persistent assumption is so powerful. When you assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled, when you live mentally in the state you desire, you create a powerful magnetic force. You draw toward you the conditions that match your inner state. Many people misunderstand this principle. They think it means sitting around waiting for miracles while doing nothing, but that's not how your subconscious works. When you truly assume the state of your wish fulfilled, you automatically begin to act differently. Your behavior changes because your consciousness has changed. Let me illustrate this with a real example. A man came to me years ago, desperate for employment. He'd been job hunting for months without success. He was attending interviews, sending applications, doing everything right on the surface. But every night, he went to bed rehearsing his failures. He replayed the rejections. He imagined future disappointments. He was, in effect, assuming the state of continued unemployment. I asked him to change only one thing. Before sleep each night, he was to feel the satisfaction of being gainfully employed, not to visualize the job, not to picture himself at a desk, but to capture the feeling, the natural relief and contentment of having secured meaningful work, to assume that state completely. Within 3 weeks, something shifted. He went to an interview he almost didn't attend. It was for a position he thought was beyond his qualifications. But something was different this time. He wasn't desperate. He wasn't pleading. He was simply present, confident, natural. The interviewer later told him it was his calm assurance that stood out among all the candidates. He got the job. What happened? His inner state had changed, and his outer actions automatically aligned with that state. He wasn't faking confidence. He genuinely felt it because he'd been assuming the state of employment every night. Your subconscious doesn't distinguish between what you imagine vividly and what you experience physically. When you persist in an assumption, it becomes your reality. First internally, then externally. This is the crucial point most people miss. Assumption doesn't replace action. It directs action. It makes your actions effective instead of scattered. It gives you the magnetism that opens doors. Let me tell you what happens when belief becomes real in your consciousness. It becomes a living thing. It breathes. It moves. It acts upon your entire world. I've watched people transform their entire lives in a matter of weeks, once they truly believed, not hoped, not wished, not tried to force, but times believed asterisk. There was a man who came to me years ago. He was in sales, struggling month after month. He had the skills. He had the product knowledge. He had the presentation down perfectly. But he wasn't selling. "What do I believe?" I asked him. He looked at me confused. "I believe I can sell," he said. "No," I told him. "What do you really believe? When you walk into that office, that boardroom, that meeting, what does your inner voice say?" He was quiet for a long moment. Then, almost in a whisper, "They won't buy from me. They never do." There it was, his real belief. his subconscious conviction. And that belief was running the show, directing every word, every gesture, every subtle energy he projected. We changed that belief, not with willpower, not with positive thinking platitudes, but by impressing a new conviction into his subconscious mind through repetition, feeling, and acceptance. Within 3 weeks, his sales doubled. Within 2 months, he led his entire region. The same man, the same product, the same market, but a completely different belief. This is not magic. This is law. This is how your mind operates. Your subconscious doesn't care what's true in the external world. It only knows what you've accepted as true in your internal world, and it will faithfully reproduce that inner truth in your outer experience. That's why two people can go through the same situation and have completely opposite results. One believes it will work out, the other believes it will fail, and both are right for themselves. Your belief sets the boundary of your experience. It's the container that holds your reality. You cannot rise higher than your belief permits. You cannot sink lower than your belief supports. This is why I say, change your belief, and you change your world. There is no other way. Your belief is the anchor of your life. It holds you in place. And wherever you are anchored, that is where you must remain until you lift the anchor. I have seen this truth demonstrated in the lives of thousands. A woman came to me once, tears streaming down her face. She said, "Dr. Murphy, I've been poor all my life. My mother was poor, her mother was poor. It runs in our family." I stopped her right there. I said, "Poverty does not run in families. Beliefs run in families. You inherited a belief, not a condition. And what you inherited, you can reject." She looked at me as though I had spoken in a foreign tongue, but I continued. Your subconscious mind does not care about your grandmother's bank account. It cares about what you accept as true, and you have accepted poverty as your inheritance. Today, you disinherit yourself from that lie. Today, you claim wealth as your birthright. Within 6 months, that woman had doubled her income. Within a year, she had started her own business. Nothing in her outer world had changed first. Her education was the same. Her connections were the same. Her circumstances were the same. But her belief had shifted, and the universe had no choice but to respond. This is the law. You do not argue with it. You do not negotiate with it. You simply use it, or you are used by it. Now, let me take you deeper. Most people think belief is intellectual. They think it is something you hold in your head, a nice idea you agree with on Sunday morning. But true belief is not intellectual, it is emotional. It is felt. It is lived. It is the atmosphere you breathe. When I speak of belief, I am speaking of conviction. Conviction is belief that has moved from the head into the heart, from thought into feeling, and feeling is the secret. Feeling is the power that impresses your subconscious mind. Your subconscious does not respond to words, it responds to feeling. You can say, "I am wealthy" 1,000 times, but if you feel poor, you remain poor. Your feeling must align with your desire. This is the great secret that most people miss entirely. They say the words, they create the vision, but deep within, they harbor doubt, fear, and disbelief, and so nothing changes. The subconscious, being literal and obedient, responds only to the feeling tone of your thoughts. Let me illustrate this with absolute clarity. Suppose you want to be healthy, vibrant, full of energy. You affirm, "I am healthy, I am strong." But as you speak these words, you feel the ache in your body, you worry about your symptoms, you imagine yourself becoming sicker. What are you really impressing upon your subconscious? Not health, but illness. Not strength, but weakness. Your feeling is creating your reality, not your words. This is why prayer without faith accomplishes nothing. This is why affirmations often fail. You must feel the reality of your desire as already accomplished. You must generate within yourself the emotional state that corresponds to your fulfilled wish. If you desire prosperity, you must feel prosperous now. If you desire love, you must feel love now. If you desire success, you must feel successful now. How do you generate this feeling? Through imagination and conviction. You imagine your desire as already real. You see it, you feel it, you live in it mentally. And as you do this consistently, your emotional state shifts. What was once a distant hope becomes a present reality in consciousness. And when it becomes real in consciousness, it must become real in experience. I have taught this to thousands, and those who apply it witness miracles. A woman came to me once, desperate for employment. She had been rejected again and again. I told her, "Before you sleep tonight, imagine yourself in the workplace you desire. See yourself performing your duties. Feel the satisfaction of meaningful work. Hear your colleagues greeting you. Make it real in your mind. Feel the joy of it." She did this faithfully for 1 week. Every night, she entered that imagined state with feeling. She felt grateful. She felt fulfilled. And within 10 days, an unexpected opportunity arose. She was hired for a position far better than anything she had previously applied for. This is not coincidence. This is law. You see, your subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between a real experience and one vividly imagined. This is why athletes mentally rehearse their performances. This is why surgeons visualize procedures before entering the operating room. They understand that the mind, when properly directed, creates the blueprint that reality follows. When you imagine something with feeling and conviction, you're not engaged in fantasy, you're engaged in creation. You're impressing upon the receptive subconscious mind the exact pattern you wish to see manifested in your external world. I want you to understand the significance of this. Every single person who has ever accomplished anything of note first held that accomplishment in their mind. The Wright brothers flew in consciousness long before they flew at Kitty Hawk. Edison saw the electric light in his imagination before he ever produced it in his laboratory. This is not poetry. This is precision. This is how creation works. Now, many people will practice visualization, but they do it mechanically. They go through the motions without engaging the feeling. This is why their results are sporadic or non-existent. Visualization without emotion is like a seed without water. The potential is there, but the conditions for growth are absent. You must feel the reality of your desire. You must enter into the joy of the answered prayer. When you visualize yourself in the situation you desire, you cannot be a detached observer watching yourself. You must be there, in the scene, experiencing it from within. If you desire a new home, don't simply picture yourself looking at a house. Feel yourself turning the key in the lock. Smell the fresh paint. Run your hand along the banister. Experience the satisfaction of ownership. Make it real in consciousness, and consciousness will make it real in form. This is the difference between those who succeed with these principles and those who claim they don't work. Your subconscious doesn't distinguish between $1 and $1 million. It doesn't weigh the difficulty of one desire against another. What determines the outcome is not the size of your goal, but the quality of your acceptance. Think about that. The person who easily manifests a parking space has the same creative power as the person who manifests a home. The only difference is their belief about what's possible. I've watched people struggle for years trying to demonstrate small things because they held them with tension and doubt, while others effortlessly brought forth magnificent outcomes because they accepted them with childlike simplicity. The subconscious responds to your conviction, not your effort. It responds to your feeling of naturalness, not your desperation. When you find yourself straining, pushing, forcing stop, you've left the creative state and entered the state of struggle. Return to the quiet inner knowing. Return to the feeling of already being what you want to be, already having what you want to have. This is not pretense. This is not self-deception. This is alignment with the law of your own mind. Let me address something that troubles many sincere students. How long will it take? This question itself reveals doubt. When you plant a seed, you don't dig it up every day to check its progress. You trust the process. You water it, give it sunlight, and allow nature to work. The same patience must be applied to your mental seeds. But here's what you must understand. Time in the outer world is not the same as time in consciousness. A complete transformation of belief can happen in an instant. I've seen it. A man who struggled with poverty consciousness for decades suddenly grasped the truth of his own creative power, and within weeks, his entire external world reflected this inner change. The years of struggle weren't necessary, they were simply the time it took for him to truly accept the principle. The moment you completely accept something in consciousness, the subconscious begins to arrange, attract, and manifest the corresponding form. Your job is not to figure out how. Your job is to remain faithful to the assumption. Let the infinite intelligence within you handle the details of manifestation. It knows the way. It has access to channels and resources your conscious mind cannot conceive. You see, this is where most people falter. They plant the seed, they water it with their affirmation, and then they dig it up every hour to see if it's sprouting. They check their bank account obsessively, they worry when the phone doesn't ring, they question and doubt and interfere with the very process they've set in motion. Let me tell you something about nature. He doesn't stand over the field shouting, "Grow, grow, why aren't you growing?" He plants the seed in fertile soil, ensures it has water and sunlight, and then he goes about his business. He trusts the intelligence of nature to do what it does. The seed contains within itself the entire blueprint for the full-grown plant. It knows how to become corn. It doesn't need the farmer's anxiety or interference. Your subconscious mind is far more intelligent than any seed. It contains the wisdom of the ages. It's connected to the universal intelligence that created galaxies and orchestrates the dance of planets. When you impress upon it a clear mental image of your desire accompanied by feeling, it immediately begins to work on materializing it in your experience. But here's what you must understand. The subconscious works in ways the conscious mind cannot fathom. It opens doors you didn't know existed. It arranges circumstances. It brings people into your path. It gives you intuitive nudges. It works through channels that seem miraculous because they bypass all logical explanation. I've seen this happen thousands of times. A woman desires a specific sum of money. She impresses it on her subconscious through feeling and conviction. Then she forgets about it and goes about her day. 2 weeks later, she receives a letter informing her of an inheritance from a distant relative she barely knew existed, the exact amount she had visualized. Was this coincidence? No. This was law in action. The subconscious mind, impressed with her desire, reached out through invisible channels and attracted to her the corresponding manifestation. This law operates with mathematical precision. It doesn't matter whether you understand electricity to flip a light switch. The light comes on because you cooperated with the principle. Similarly, you don't need to understand every mechanism of the subconscious mind to benefit from its power. You simply need to impress it correctly. Many people sabotage themselves at this crucial stage. They plant the seed, then dig it up every day to see if it's growing. They affirm their desire in the morning, then spend the afternoon worrying about how it will come to pass. This is mixing faith with fear, and the subconscious receives confused instructions. Remember, your subconscious accepts what you truly believe. Not what you say, but what you feel to be true in the depths of your being. This is why mere repetition, without feeling, accomplishes nothing. You can chant affirmations 1,000 times, but if your heart whispers, "This won't work," your heart will win. The woman who found her position didn't affirm mechanically. She felt the joy of meaningful work. She experienced the satisfaction of using her talents. She lived in the assumption that her ideal job was already hers in divine mind, simply waiting to manifest in time and space. This brings us to one of the most liberating truths you'll ever encounter. You are not responsible for the how. Your job is to define the what, and maintain the feeling of the wish fulfilled. The infinite intelligence within you knows every person, every circumstance, every pathway that can bring your desire into being. When you try to dictate the method, you limit infinite possibilities to your finite understanding. You say, "I must get this job by applying through their website." But perhaps the hiring manager is your neighbor's cousin. Perhaps you'll meet them at a social event. Perhaps they'll hear about you through a completely unexpected channel. Release your desire to the subconscious and trust the process. This isn't passive resignation, it's active faith. You continue to take inspired action when opportunities present themselves, but you don't strain or force. You move with the current rather than against it. The universe rewards this kind of trust in remarkable ways. When you're not desperately grasping at outcomes, when you're not constantly checking to see if your manifestation has arrived yet, you create a vacuum that the universe rushes to fill. It's the watched pot principle. The more anxiously you monitor something, the slower it seems to manifest. I've seen this play out countless times. Someone wants to manifest a relationship, and they spend every waking moment obsessing over when it will happen, analyzing every interaction, desperately searching dating apps, feeling anxious when they're alone. This energy of desperation actually repels what they desire. But when they truly let go, when they affirm their desire, feel the fulfillment, and then release it with trust, everything shifts. They stop checking their phone every 5 minutes. They enjoy their own company. They pursue activities that bring them joy. And suddenly, seemingly out of nowhere, the right person appears. This happens because letting go changes your vibration from lack to abundance. You're no longer broadcasting, "I don't have this and I need it desperately." You're broadcasting, "I am fulfilled, and I trust that everything is working in my favor." Think about this. When you finally stop worrying about something, when you genuinely release your attachment to it, how often does it suddenly resolve itself? You stop obsessing over a job application, and the call comes. You stop desperately seeking approval from someone, and they suddenly start pursuing you. You stop trying to force a solution to a problem, and the answer arrives effortlessly. This isn't coincidence, it's the natural law of manifestation responding to your changed state of consciousness. Letting go also means releasing the need to understand every detail of how your manifestation will occur. The universe has resources, connections, and pathways you cannot possibly imagine from your limited human perspective. When you insist on understanding the how, you're actually limiting the ways your desire can manifest. Your job is to define the what and the why, what you desire and why you desire it. The how belongs to the universe. Maybe you think you need a specific job to have financial security, but the universe knows about an opportunity that would fulfill your need in ways far better than you imagined. When you release your grip on the how, you allow infinite intelligence to work on your behalf. You stop forcing doors that were never meant to open and start noticing doors you didn't even know existed. I've seen this principle work miracles in people's lives. A woman once came to me devastated because she lost what she thought was her dream job. She couldn't understand why her prayers seemed to go unanswered. I told her, "Your subconscious mind is protecting you from something and leading you toward something better." 3 months later, she started her own business, something she'd never considered, and within a year, she was earning triple her previous salary and working on her own terms. The job loss wasn't a tragedy, it was a redirect. The universe operates with a wisdom that your conscious mind cannot comprehend. When you plant a seed in the ground, do you dig it up every day to check if it's growing? Of course not. You trust the process. You water it, give it sunlight, and allow nature to do what nature does. Your desires work the same way. You plant the seed through clear intention and feeling. You nourish it with faith and gratitude, and then you let it grow beneath the surface until it breaks through into your visible reality. Here's what surrender is not. It is not giving up. It is not passivity. It is not sitting on your couch waiting for money to fall from the sky. Surrender is active trust. You still take inspired action. You still move toward your goals. But you do so from a place of peace rather than panic, from faith rather than fear. Think of it like driving at night. Your headlights only illuminate about 200 feet ahead, but you can make the entire journey that way. You don't need to see the whole path from start to finish. You just need to see the next step, and then the next, trusting that the road continues beyond what's currently visible. That's how you walk in faith, one illuminated step at a time. Many people confuse attachment with desire. They think if they stop obsessing over something, they don't want it badly enough. But attachment and desire are completely different energies. Desire is expansive. It feels like possibility and excitement. Attachment is contracting. It feels like anxiety and desperation. Desire says, "I would love to experience this." Attachment says, "I'll die if I don't get this." When you release attachment, you don't become passive or indifferent. You become more powerful. You step into a state of confident expectation rather than desperate need. You're no longer gripping so tightly that you're cutting off circulation to your own dreams. I've watched people transform their entire reality simply by loosening their grip. A woman came to me once, exhausted from years of trying to force a business into existence. She had micromanaged every detail, worked herself to burnout, and still the success she wanted eluded her. When she finally learned to release her attachment to how and when it should happen, when she planted the seed in her subconscious with faith and then went about her work with peace rather than panic, everything shifted. Within months, opportunities appeared that she could never have orchestrated through force. The paradox is beautiful. When you stop needing something desperately, you often receive it naturally. Here's a practice that will help you distinguish between healthy desire and toxic attachment. Imagine your wish already fulfilled. Now, ask yourself, does thinking about it make you feel expansive and joyful, or does it make you feel anxious and incomplete? If you feel joy, you're in desire. If you feel anxiety, you've crossed into attachment. Attachment always contains an element of fear. It whispers, "What if it doesn't happen? What if I fail? What if I'm not enough?" Desire, grounded in faith, affirms, "It is already mine in consciousness, I accept it now." I trust the process completely. This is why I emphasize feeling as the secret. When you can genuinely feel your wish fulfilled without the desperate clinging, without the anxiety of not yet having it, you've found the sweet spot. You're living from the end result emotionally, but you're not strangling it with fear. Think of planting a garden. You plant seeds with intention and care. You water them, provide sunlight, trust the soil, but you don't dig them up every day to check if they're growing. You don't pace anxiously, demanding they sprout faster. That would destroy them. You tend them, yes, but with relaxed confidence in the natural process. Your desires need the same treatment. Plant them deeply in your subconscious through feeling and imagination. Tend them with faith and positive expectation, but release the desperate need to control exactly how and when they manifest. Your garden will flourish in ways you never imagined possible when you stop trying to force each flower to bloom on your timetable. This surrender isn't resignation. It's the highest form of faith. You're saying to the universe, "I know what I want. I've claimed it. I've felt it. Now, I trust you to bring it to me in the perfect way, at the perfect time." Many people struggle with this because they confuse surrender with giving up. They think, if I stop worrying about it, if I stop checking for results every 5 minutes, doesn't that mean I don't really want it? No. It means you want it so completely that you're willing to get out of your own way and let it come to you. Think of ordering something valuable online. You place the order, you enter your payment information, you confirm the purchase, then what do? You go about your life. You don't stand by your mailbox every hour, anxiously checking, desperately wondering where your package is. You don't call the company 10 times a day demanding to know its exact location. You trust that it's on its way. You trust the process. Your desires work the same way. You place your order with the universe through prayer, through visualization, through feeling. Then you trust the delivery system. I've watched people sabotage their own manifestations at this final stage. They do everything right, they identify their desire, they feel it deeply, they impress it upon their subconscious mind. Then they ruin it all by becoming obsessed with the how and the when. They wake up every morning and immediately start scanning their reality for evidence. Is it here yet? Why isn't it here? What if it never comes? What if I'm doing something wrong? This anxious checking is like digging up your seeds every day to see if they're growing. You damage the very thing you're trying to nurture. Instead, plant your seed and walk away with confidence. Live your life. Feel grateful that your desire is already yours in the invisible realm and is now making its way into the visible. Occupy yourself with other things. Be productive. Be joyful. Be present in your current moment. When you do this, something miraculous happens. The universe has space to work. Synchronicities begin to occur. People show up. Opportunities appear. Doors open that you didn't even know existed. Your desire comes to you through channels you never could have orchestrated through your limited human planning. And here's the beautiful part: when your subconscious mind is working in harmony with your conscious desire, there's a naturalness to it all. You don't feel like you're forcing or pushing or struggling against a current. You feel carried, supported, led by an intelligence far greater than your intellect alone. This is what I mean when I talk about the law of life being the law of belief. Whatever you impress upon your subconscious mind, it will express in your experience. And when you're in that receptive state, when you've done the inner work of acceptance and feeling, the outer work becomes almost effortless. Not without action, but action that flows from inspiration rather than desperation. Let me tell you about a woman who came to one of my lectures years ago. She was trying to sell her home for months with no success. She had priced it fairly, kept it clean, done everything the real estate agent suggested, but nothing, no offers. She was becoming anxious, worried, frustrated, and that very frustration was the block. I told her what I'm telling you now. Go home tonight, I said, and before you sleep, imagine the satisfaction of having sold your home. Don't visualize buyers walking through. Don't try to orchestrate the how. Simply feel the relief, the joy, the completion of having it done. Feel yourself signing the papers. Feel the handshake. Feel the gratitude that the perfect buyer found you. She did this faithfully, every night for 1 week. And on the 8th day, a couple contacted her directly. They hadn't even seen the listing. They'd been driving through the neighborhood, saw the house, fell in love with it, and made an offer that very afternoon, above asking price. Was that coincidence? Was that luck? No. That was the subconscious mind, impressed with the feeling of the wish fulfilled, orchestrating circumstances beyond the conscious mind's ability to plan. Now, I want you to understand something crucial about time. Your subconscious mind does not recognize time the way your conscious mind does. To your subconscious, there is only now, there is only this present moment. When you impress upon it the feeling of your wish fulfilled, it doesn't say, well, that's a nice goal for next year. No, it accepts it as accomplished fact right now. This is why feeling is so important. You cannot fool your subconscious mind with words alone. You can affirm something 1,000 times, but if there's no feeling behind it, if there's no conviction, you're just making noise. The subconscious responds to the emotional tone, the feeling quality of your thoughts. Let me share another example that illustrates this perfectly. There was a salesman who came to one of my lectures years ago. He was struggling terribly. He told me he would go out every day, knock on doors, make calls, but he would return home exhausted and empty-handed. He said he felt like he was pushing a boulder uphill. I asked him a simple question. When you approach a potential customer, what do you feel? He was honest. He said, I feel like I'm bothering them. I feel like they're going to reject me. I feel like I'm not good enough. There was the problem. His subconscious mind was impressed with failure and rejection. And so, naturally, that's exactly what he experienced. His outer world was merely reflecting his inner convictions. I taught him to change his inner state. Before going out each day, he would sit quietly, close his eyes, and imagine a customer shaking his hand warmly, thanking him for the product, writing a check. He would feel the satisfaction, the joy, the sense of accomplishment. He did this every morning for 10 minutes. Within 3 weeks, his entire experience transformed. Not because the market changed, not because the economy suddenly improved, but because he changed the impression in his subconscious mind. He began to expect success, to feel successful, and his outer circumstances conformed to his inner state. You see, you are not a victim of circumstances. You are the creator of them. Every condition in your life right now is an outpicturing of your habitual thinking and feeling. If you don't like what you see, change the inner pattern. Change what you're impressing upon your subconscious mind.